Hi everyone, how are you doing? It's good to be back with another video. Welcome back to the third week of Lent. Welcome to the third week of Lent. If you just joined us, if this is your first time here, then welcome. If this is not your first time here and you're just back for another video, then welcome back. Today's video is rather a bit different from the other ones I've made in the past. If you have not gotten a chance to watch those, you can actually just go to the series titled Lent, and you will find the other resources, the other videos that we went through, the videos that I've recorded in the past. So without wasting much time, I would like to explain to you that today's video is a bit different, and so I would ask you to be in a situation or in a position which you're most comfortable in, and to close your eyes. Yes, it's something, it's making yourself vulnerable, but if you can, I would really appreciate it and I think it would be helpful if you just close your eyes as I guide you through this video. I'd like for you to close your eyes and just imagine what I'm saying. Just try to visualize everything that I'm saying so that it'll make sense. You can put your hands wherever you want to put your hands. If you want to place your hands on your legs, you can do that. If you want to put your hands together, you can do that. I'll be guiding us through a familiar story that we are all familiar with, the story of the child who returned home, or the story of the merciful father, or the story of the loving father, or as most of us know it, the story of the prodigal son. And we're all different, as children of God. We are different, but we're still his children. Some of us are a bit messed up more than the others, and others are a bit more put together. But we are his children. We're still God's children. And some of us leave our father's houses, some of us leave our father's house and we go astray, and others never leave. Others are always there with dad. They never leave. They're always there with dad at his right hand side, or just present, When some of us leave our father's house, we go to distant lands, When sin presents itself to us, we start small until we are in much, much distant lands. I'd like you to recall the first time you committed a very huge sin, or the sin that opened a door to many other sins. Perhaps it was at a party and someone took you outside or took you upstairs to sleep with you, and you thought it was okay because everyone was doing it. Or perhaps it was a person who offered you money to do something for them and you did it. Or maybe it was very small, you just saw something on the table and you thought taking it would not mean much. I want you to recall the first time you committed a sin that was big enough to make you worry, and just trace it and see just how far you've come. See just that even those small sins, they land us in much, much distant lands, because we keep going and going and going. We move further and further and further away. We start off with the very small things, and when it's fully blown, it's much bigger. Perhaps it started off as sensual sex with someone, and now it's full-blown sex trade. Or perhaps you didn't know what was going on, and now you know what you're doing, and you don't have the strength to stop. You can't stop. And the number one destination of sin is a distant land, far, far away from our heavenly home. And as we are there, we squander our graces, but our identity remains. We are still His children. We are still the Father's children. We are His. Sin makes us spend everything from money to emotions and every other thing we own, our dignity and everything, But still, our identity remains. We are still His children. And in life, just when we think that we've been through the most, we've been through a lot, some other thing comes up and it just leaves us desperate. And in our emptiness, in our desperation, and in our nothingness, we long for something more. We long for something bigger. And so we begin to ask ourselves, is this a life worth living? Or maybe was I not meant for more? Is this what I'm really made for? Or do I not deserve more out of life than what I'm getting right now? We know that we deserve more. We have a deep longing in our hearts, and this longing is for our Father. It's a longing for home. And as far as we are away from home, our identity remains. We are still His children. And whether we remember it or not, He loves us. He loves us so much, even in our sinfulness. He loves us. And it breaks His heart. It breaks our Father's heart. His heart breaks. And He has so much anguish at the thought of the fact that we are not at home with Him. We look for more in various places. We yearn for it. We try to numb the pain through various drugs of choices. And, as it always is, no one is ever able to truly satisfy the thirst that we have, the yearning, the longing for more. No one is ever able to satisfy it. And after running for some time, we just get tired. We stop. At long last, we come to our senses and we remember who we truly are. We remember that we are His children. We remember that we are children of our Father. And we remember just how loving our Father is. We know we deserve more out of life. And we realize that it can only be attained or received at home, because home is truly where we belong. So we decide to set off. We set off for our Father's home. We set off for home. We begin to return. We put one foot in front of the other, and we psych ourselves up and decide to go back home. The steps get harder and harder. We start small, and as we progress, the enemy comes. I want you to remember the last time that you decided you were going to start off and go back home. And I want you to remember or recall the time that you realized that home is truly home, that you need God for everything else in your life to make sense. I want you to remember the time you set off for home, and just hold that thought together. As we walk home, as we approach home, so much goes through our minds, and we wonder and we think, and the enemy comes and he lies. We ask ourselves, will my Father accept me the way I am? Will He welcome me back home? We wonder, will any of this really work out? A lot goes on inside our heads. And the enemy sees an opportunity to stop us from going back home. He whispers various lies into our ears. He tells us we can't do it. He tells us we've tried before and we didn't get far. He tells us our Father doesn't love us because we're too sinful. He tells us God has nothing to do with the sinner. He tells us that we're far too gone and home is too far away. And he tells us that no one is ever going to believe that we truly changed. He tells us that we can't do it. He tells us that our character won't last. He tells us that the small changes we're making in our lives, be it ignoring certain people or just shutting out certain music, won't last, It tells us that we'll be left alone and without friends or anyone to love us. He lies to us. And when we keep walking, he elevates things. It becomes harder and harder and harder to keep walking. He presents to us what we desire, what our flesh likes. He does this so as to dissuade us from going back home. He does this because he knows that we are too good to be his. He knows that if we go back home, he would cease to have power over us. He'll try to delay us or even stop us when we're almost home. And the closer we get, the harder he will try, the harder things will seem to be. Just when you are fighting masturbation or a pornographic addiction, perhaps, and you have spent one whole week without falling into that sin, and from nowhere it comes back and it tells you, I told you you could not do this. And we begin to believe the lie and we attempted to stop. But remember through it all that we're still our Father's. We're still children of our Father. And in the midst of all these trials, we are still his children. So you see, once off, we begin again. And as we arrive closer to home, our Father sees us, and he sees us while we're still a long way off. He recognizes us. And he is filled with so much joy, and tears overwhelm him as he rushes out to meet us. And in his old age, he can't run fast, but he tries his best to run to meet his long-lost children who have returned home. And finally, after so much time, he can finally embrace his children. His tears and joy allow him to only hug us and not say anything, but just instruct all the people around us that they should give us the finest robes. Not just any robe, but the finest. Not because we deserve any of these things, but because our Father loves us and we are his children. You are his child and he wants to welcome you home. So you can open your eyes now. God loves you. He loves you too much to leave you where you are. He loves both of us too much to leave us right where we are in our sinfulness, in our sinful nature. And so he wants us to come home. And that's the whole point of having Lent. He wants to have a deeper relationship with you, a better relationship, and to just call you to himself. And so this week, I challenge you to just sit at the foot of the cross and just look at what Jesus died. Look at what Jesus did. Look at how he died when, we were still sinners, and we still are. We battle constantly trying to become better Christians, but the battle's still on. So this week, meditate on the fact that God loves you and nothing else. Just that. Just remember that God loves you, and think of what it means to be truly loved by God unconditionally. I hope this video has helped, and may God continue to bless you. Have a blessed week, my brothers and sisters.